Eric Merchant.
The.
And I like to make it French.
Because it tickles.
I didn't say that. Anyway, Eric obviously owns Merchant Automotive, all things Duramax. Also has a drive-in service shop. I've had the pleasure of getting very, very close with Eric over the last couple of years since Vision 2 years ago. Eric did some unique stuff over the last year after leaving Vision, the first year he went. And so in those conversations with Eric, I decided that it would be really good for him to get up here and kind of share his story and kind of give you guys some pointers in that direction. Give it up for Eric.
Thank you. A couple questions to start with. How many in here went to school, business trained, thought, I want to open my own business, it should be a diesel shop? It's exactly how many I predicted it would be. How many technicians turned shop owners? This is also the exact number I thought it would be. So fortunately, we're all in the same group together. And I wanted to just kind of share my journey along that way. So I started wrenching right out of high school, 16 years old, was in an independent brake shop. Did that after school, did some co-op at a tire store, and then right after high school, went into the dealership world and spent 10 years into the dealership, mainly heavy line, transmission repair, things like that, and learned the ins and outs and the fun and excitement of that world and what that can be. I was very proud of the things I learned, and I was very goal-oriented in that age or that time frame. So I was ASE Master at 21, and I was striving for GM Master or GM World Class, I think they call it, in the dealership setting. Bounced around at some different dealerships. Anybody that's been in the dealership world, really, there's no loyalty there. It's make your money and move on, unfortunately. I knew I was really good at what I did for a while. Went into one dealership, and what I noticed there was a service manager and we didn't get along very well. And what I like to say is one of us had the power to hire and fire, and it was March of 2005 that he exercised that right. So I was left without a job. I'd never been fired before, and I really didn't think it was that big of a deal after it happened. But at that point, I can easily roll a toolbox down to the next dealership, continue on, put up with the same stuff. But about a year before that, in 2004, I'd started an LLC, which is now Merchant Automotive, and did some e-commerce stuff. I was doing transmissions, Allison transmissions in the garage at home on the weekends, shipping orders twice a week, mainly just filters and small things like that. So after being asked to leave the dealership world, I figured, well, what better time than now? The bad part is the preparation for that was almost an hour. I had 2 kids under 2. I didn't have any kind of a savings built up or any plan. I had a hoist in the garage at home and some tools. So I thought, well, this is probably as good a time as any to see if it works, and did it. The bootlegging, I mean, it was all bootleg. I didn't really know what numbers meant. Like I said, I didn't have any savings. I was sole income. And so what did we all do at that point? I think most people in here would probably agree with that. You bust your ass. 7 days a week, day and night, you do what you got to do. And we didn't really realize there was life outside of work, at least I would say for most of us at that point. Numbers, again, I didn't know what numbers meant. I knew that I had to make money, and then if I made some money, I could buy a piece of equipment. I had to pay a bill, I had to do this. Finances were absolute chaos. I had one checkbook, and it was kind of a business account, but it wasn't. So all my personal expenses were paid out of a checkbook. All my business expenses were paid out of a checkbook. And most of the time, everybody got paid. But If you don't have work, or you don't charge enough, or you don't whatever, you don't have the money to pay that stuff. So I learned quickly, you need to charge. But anybody in here, I think, most would attest, you're a proud technician. We value ourselves on fixing whatever comes in that door, especially if somebody else couldn't, or hadn't been able to, or didn't know how to, and they could come in, man, within an hour we could figure that out, whatever that was. And then you're also the technician that doesn't realize the value in that. So you did it for a half hour of diag or a half hour of testing or whatever that was. And you can't overcharge on parts, for God's sakes. These people know what this stuff costs. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I did that for a long time. Realized that I didn't really have the ability to do all that alone, because the phone's ringing too. So the phone's ringing, you're in the middle of a job. So then I found myself being on the phone and doing that type of stuff during the day. And then at 5 o'clock when the phone would quit ringing, then I could actually spend time working on a truck. That was great, I thought, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do it that way very long. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to hire somebody. So I hired somebody. I hired a body. I hired somebody that I thought was going to help. That opened up a lot of other challenges, because now you have somebody else involved with you. And I really didn't know how to take care of an employee. I knew how to register with the state and process payroll and pay their tax, when the accountant did. So all that was good, but I didn't know what it meant to have somebody. And I remember going on a road test with a truck one particular day, it doesn't matter which day. And I came back from the road test, probably 15 minutes, and I noticed when I pulled back into the shop that it was quiet. And what I mean by that, there was a radio that we always had playing in the background. I thought, well, that's weird, the radio's not playing. And I thought, okay. I got out, set the hoist, or did whatever, and then I looked around and I realized that he was gone. And the radio that used to be sitting on the shelf was also gone. I'm like, oh, I guess the guy just quit on me. So, did I learn anything from that? No, it wasn't my fault. It was his problem. I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe I did, but that's down the road. Through that time period, again, we're just trying to do everything we can to keep this thing afloat. We answer the phone, we bring everything in. The internet was big. The internet forums were big back in that time, so you're always hustling on those. And sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. I did have a visit from a repo man twice through those early periods. Again, I've got 2 kids that haven't quite hit high school or grade school age, and they would spend a lot of their weekends in the top drawer of a toolbox, because that way they couldn't get into stuff. They weren't really in the way of anything, but I was spending time with them. Did they realize it was different? No, they still talk about it. We used to sit in the back of that toolbox. I'm sure they're maybe wishing things were a little different. But ultimately, all I knew is if that truck came in, I could fix it. Or I thought I could fix it. And I'd be damned if I was going to stop until I did fix it. Even if I wasn't being paid to fix it, we just had that, we all had that pride. Like the son of a bitch is broke. I'm going to fix it. We'll worry about, that's education. I don't need to charge for that. Well, as it turns out, you do. That education is great, but knowing how to fix this mysterious problem, none of my vendors took that knowledge as payment. None of my landlords took that knowledge as payment. So I just had to hustle harder. That was, again, I can't charge for it because I'm the friendly guy. I'm the nice guy. You don't want to piss somebody off by charging them. That kind of worked, I thought. But what I quickly realized, and I still learn it to this day, what I quickly realized is the more I would bend over to try and help somebody or accommodate them or give them a deal or any of that type of stuff, the more it bit me in the end. Whether it be they would just come back complaining or expect it for free next time, or anything that would take money out of my pocket, basically, and help this person out. And, you know, they're always, man, I'm going to tell all my friends, and they're going to bring all their stuff to you, and blah, blah. Does that ever happen when you give somebody a deal? If it does, raise your hand, because I have not seen it. Vinny touched on it a little bit. Charge. It's just a matter of charging it. I'm jumping ahead a little bit there. I think a good comparison is, what kind of people do you want to attract? And it doesn't have to be you're the most expensive necessarily. It's just that value. Throughout those early days, it just didn't spend enough time trying to fix the very thing that was broken, but I didn't realize it was broke. So the trucks that would come in, you fix them. You find a flaw, you fix it. You find a way to make it better. You improve this, you improve that. I was putting effort into improving everything in front of me except the very being of the business, because I didn't realize it was broke. Being self-employed is hard. It's supposed to be hard. It takes 5 years. You hear all these stories. It sucks. You got to put effort into it. But that was all I knew. Excuse me. Over the years, things got a little bit better. There's a period of time I had a partner. The partner came in not as a partner. It was an employee. He knew that I needed help. I'm a technician. I want to be in the back underneath the truck. I don't want to be in the office. I don't want to know how to use accounting software. I can balance a checkbook most of the time pretty accurately. That was it. So he came in and took over some of that aspect of the business. He kind of went on the front end of the business. I was on the back end of the business, and that worked great for a couple of years. Probably also common theme of us technicians, single-headed, stubborn-minded people, is we're not the greatest communicators. And that ended up being kind of a downfall of things. So this partner I had did a lot of good things for the business, got it to another place that it wasn't going to be otherwise, but eventually, because of that communication issue, that just faded off. So through the lawyers and all the fun stuff that go with that partnership was dissolved. We split ways. I stayed in the business, and that forced me into that owner seat again. So at this point, I'm 5 or 6 years removed from the day-to-day ownership responsibilities, and I didn't really feel I had a choice otherwise, so I forced myself to learn a lot of things from an ownership standpoint. I'm not very smart about retaining some of that knowledge at times, because I didn't have an interest in it. It wasn't something I wanted to fix, but I knew I had to. And almost part of that was the thrill of fixing or improving the business. And when I say fixing and improving the business, it was keeping the lights on and keeping people working there. It was not big picture plans. It was survival mode. Part of the things that I did appreciate about the industry and the business is from an early on, 2005, 2006 is when I started being exposed to some of the events that the industry has. And I thought, well, if I'm in this niche of a world in this diesel aftermarket, I should go to these events. And through those events, you realize, wow, it's marketing. We're trying to gain business, that type of stuff. But then you meet the other people that are there. And there's some people I'm seeing in this room that were there 20 years ago that I remember meeting and to this day maintain those friendships with. And there's other ones that have come along the way that it's almost like a family. And I think there's a lot of people that we probably don't agree with online or behind the keyboard where it's easy to run our mouth. I think that's the best way I can say it. But when you come to an event like this and you talk face to face, all of a sudden you have a different perspective on those people. So you realize how small the industry really is, but we're still in our own little world in the grand scheme of things. And as a whole, I think this industry, especially the automotive aftermarket being the bigger picture, we don't understand what our value really is, because we're all technicians. We can fix the truck, but how do you charge for that? How do you have the confidence to charge for that? Are we running a grocery store where you can buy that steak for $7 or $8, or are you running a restaurant where you're providing a cooked steak on a meal? And then when you do go to that steak, are you going to Applebee's? Or are you going to Malone's? Is that the right name of the place here, Tom? Chris? Malone's? Yeah. Thanks for dinner. Yeah, thanks, Dennis. What I realized there, I want to eat at Malone's. Applebee's is great. It serves its purpose. Usually it's dragging a gooseneck home after some truck pull hours away, and they're open. But we always leave there like, that was okay, Nick. But it really wasn't what we really wanted. We wanted that premium service. To offer that, Vinny touched on it again, we have to charge for it. But I didn't know that. I didn't know I wasn't charging enough. Up until 3 years ago, we were $125 an hour in our service department, and I thought that was good money. We charged book time, maybe a little bit extra if it had some aftermarket stuff on it. And MAP price, I thought, was the Bible. Well, we can't sell that for more than MAP price because they know what the street price is. The customers know what the street price is. They know what the state costs too. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it costs. But I didn't know any better at the time. So 17, 18 years in at this point, and I was surviving. The company survives. There were some good years in there. Every year, up for a while, was a growth year. Things improve, and then I'm still in this e-commerce side of things, and then the drive-in service side of things, and then the manufacturing side of things. I bought a CNC machine to make parts that I got sick of outsourcing, and realized about the time it was being set on the floor, I didn't know how to turn it on. I sure as hell didn't know how to run it. So now I needed a person for that. So I couldn't turn it on, couldn't run it. Sure as hell wasn't going to tell it what to do. I knew how much aluminum cost. And I think that's a pretty bad start to jumping into a manufacturing side of things. Anybody in here do anything outside just service? Are you multifaceted with e-com and other aspects of it? Couple? So you know the feeling. So it's 3-4 different businesses all in one. And they are differently. E-commerce, you're fighting a whole different set of challenges as you are with a drive-in service, and it's not the same. And even with the e-com, it's a different set of challenges, and they're harder to overcome because even if we're just competing with ourselves to sell XYZ brand part, how are we going to compete with Amazon and that? So we shouldn't have to. But what do they get from Amazon that Amazon can't provide? Well, they don't get us. They don't get that expertise. They don't get that knowledge of how to install said part. They don't get somebody answering the phone. Those are the things that you can't buy, you can't sell, you just provide, and to pay for that, you're charging accordingly. So a couple, year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I had an employee at the time. He was turning me on to this podcast, and it was a podcast that was other shop owners. Some of you may have heard it. It was the ASOG podcast, I believe is what they called it then. Now it's changed to Changing the Industry podcast. And it's automotive aftermarket. It's other shop owners, management, things like that, and it's discussing the trials and tribulations of shop ownership and what we know or don't know. Through that, and through, I think, probably Chris and maybe some other people in here, then there's this event called Vision in Kansas City. big automotive conference or automotive aftermarket conference with technical training, some management training. And I thought, well, we should probably, I'm curious about that. So last year, 2023, I went to Vision and really wanted to take some of the technical classes because it was things that I thought would be interesting and relevant. The adult side of me says I probably need to stay focused on some of the business side of things and learn the things that I probably already knew because I've been doing this forever. In the very first class that I sat in, I sat right in the, first or second row, and it was Cecil teaching that class. And he started talking about being profitable and making money and charging what you're worth and all this stuff that, okay, whatever. And then to hear it is one thing, but then you get it some more. And then I know Bill's in here somewhere. I sat in one of his classes, and there's some other people, and then you start learning that, wow, you really can charge what we're worth. We already know. Anybody in here think they are not providing top-notch, stellar service? Anybody just half-ass stuff and push it out the door? I didn't think so. And I think the fact that you're here plays a big part of that because there's a lot of shops. There's a lot of industry. I don't know what the numbers are on how many aftermarket repair shops there is, but the consensus is there's 5 to 10% of them that actually attend regular training, that actually attend conferences like this to learn, to improve their skill set, and continue to push that industry to realize that they don't have to be that $125 shop. The most valuable asset I think all of us have is not hanging the part. Why does it need the part? That's what people pay for. Why do you need the part? Chris asked the question when Vinny was done. Guy comes in for a lift pump. What do you do with it? Well, the first question I'm going to have, because I was thinking that when he asked it, why do you want the lift pump? Yes, it's a good idea. Yes, it's great. But is he hiding something? Is there something that he wants to fix that he's not going to tell you? Most of the time, it seems that there is. I want a new transmission. We've seen that one before. Why? Well, this one doesn't shift right. Okay? And more than once, personally, I've drove trucks that needed a fuel filter, not a transmission. Sure, talked the guy out of a $6,000 repair, but you fixed the guy. You took care of the guy. And I think at the end of the day, that's what he's going to remember. After that Vision, I came back with some of those, not after the Vision, after the conference of Vision, I had all this stuff in my head that I had to figure out what to do with it. And I realized right away that my rates had to go up. And then, because remember earlier, I don't understand the numbers, and that still held true up until a few years ago, we make money on parts and labor. If you're not making money on one or the other, you're probably not making money. 20-25% on parts I thought was pretty good. At that time, then I realized that parts overall, you should be 50, 55, 60% gross profit. Map pricing means absolutely nothing to a repair shop. Absolutely nothing. It's there for the internet. It doesn't mean anything. How the job is presented. You can build that together. I'll use the restaurant example. They don't break it down. The meat costs this, the toppings cost this, the side dish costs this. It's the dinner. You're buying the dinner. You present the dinner, you buy the dinner, that's what you're getting. And if you're breaking it down, we need parts and we need labor and this, that, and the other thing, people work backwards on that, especially with round number labor rates. And then they all of a sudden I'm not paying him that kind of money for that because they have a number in their head. So it's the presentation of it. Part of being able to do that, which I think I'm still learning, is the confidence. Do you have confidence in yourself? And I know every one of you do. You have confidence that you can fix the truck. have confidence that you can put the part on correctly, and you have confidence 90% of the time in the parts that we're installing. Sometimes we do get bum stuff. Sometimes we're stuck with choices that we don't want to make on maybe some suspension parts or things like that because of availability. The last couple of years, we've all seen availability suffer. But are you confident in them? Can you look that guy in the eye and be confident in yourself? And I think we can, but we don't always do it. Just because we're that shop owner, we can't charge them that much. And if we're giving them the best quality job that we can do, the experience, the service, the follow-up, the rest of it lands in place. The one thing that I would find myself doing if I was on the counter, something goes bad, something goes to crap, and I would immediately make a financial decision on how to take care of that situation. Oh, the guy's broke down. If I send a tow truck, it's going to be like $400 for a tow truck. Then this, then that. And I was always thinking of my wallet. Well, the customer doesn't give a rat's ass about my wallet. He's broke down on the side of the road. Maybe his family's broke down. Maybe he's got a trailer, vacation, whatever the case is. But I didn't have the backing financially. I didn't have the money in the bank to just not worry about it because I wasn't getting it on the front side. So you're able to take care of those situations. And if you can jump at something like that immediately when that situation arrives, the best, I think some of the best customer relationships that I've had over the years are not the customers that everything went smooth and glassy and that just worked. Some of the best ones have been the ones that there was a problem. Something happened, there was a problem. And that directly turned into how it was handled. And when it's handled good, it's handled quickly, it's handled efficiently, and the customer's taken care of, those customers are probably going to be better customers than the ones that everything went perfect on in the first place. But you have the money to do it because you're charging for that. You're charging appropriately. You're charging for your knowledge. A scan tool, what's a scan tool cost these days for something? 5, 10, 15. And how many do you have? 1 to 3. What do you charge to plug that in? Perfect. 240. So those are the right answers, or at least the better answers. How many times have you said, you know what, let me just check quick that a minute. You take your $10,000 scanner out. Oh, that's just a glow plug. What'd you do? You just devalued everything. Maybe it is just a glow plug. But you've trained that customer to not really need to go through the appropriate channels because now they're that discount friendly. Oh, you're not going to charge me. Things like that. Those scenarios like that, and as I've continued to learn it from Vision, last year right here in this room was Survive or Thrive. What do we call it? 1? Sure. Roman numeral I don't know. OG was very good because that bond is made. And then there's software out there that I'm not trying to sell software by any means, but if you're handwriting tickets or doing manual calculations on some of those estimations, you're probably hurting yourself a little bit. Whereas modern shop management software is going to take into a lot of that account for you. So you can say, I need to make this much money. And it will do those calculations for you, present all that. And then if just the user experience with the customer is usually pretty good too with the digital stuff. Another thing that I did, because I already know everything, is I started working with Cecil in the Institute to tell me how much I didn't know. And I'm picking up a few nuggets here and there, I'm not going to lie. Cecil, you do good. But just because we know how to fix the truck, man, that's 30% of it. Especially if you're in that ownership role, the technician role. Some of the technician stuff, yeah, the stuff changes every year, every couple months. I knew I'd be heckled. This event, things like this, there's other ones around the country. There's the peer group, the informal forming of peer groups with people in this room. We've all done it. We've all, I think, learned from other people. And there's a lot of, they're my competitors. I don't want to talk to them. I can't share my secrets, or they're not going to tell me anything because we're competitors. Well, I know you've all heard the phrase, and I'm going to screw it up. Competition happens at the bottom. Cooperation and collaboration happens at the top. And I've said it earlier, you're here, and it's a Thursday. So what's it cost to shut your shop down to come here? You all know what that probably is. And you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your future, you're investing in everything because you're willing to step back and take that, to learn that. 2023 was a much better year for me personally as far as financially. Ironically, 2023 was down overall gross from 2022, but as a combined, I'll give you enough information to get the point across, but I'm not going to share everything with you up here. 2022, I didn't have to pay any tax at the end of the year because I was so good at running the business that I was able to make a 0.04% profit without trying. And I don't know how that math's out, but it saved me on taxes, but that was it. Last year, overall, e-com manufacturing, still learning. I mean, this is 1 year in with a little bit of knowledge gained and some implementations in place and making sure pricing is staying up to date and other things that go along with it. It went to 10%, roughly 10% on the overall business, which for a combined with e-com and everything else, I was pretty happy with. Is there more on the table? Absolutely. Absolutely. From a drive-in service standpoint, does anybody in here with just service shop know a bottom line that you did? Do you know your bottom line, your net from last year? You don't have to say it out loud. Does anybody know it? One, two, couple? Over or under 5%? Up? Good. There's a lot of ways to get there. I'm not going to be the one to tell you all that detail stuff because I'm out of my league right there. There's two guys in this room right now that may or may not touch on it. When they come up, 20% is pretty good after everything. And 20% that's a lot. That allows you to build those buildings, pay your people, take care of the people, come to these events, reinvest. There's a lot that can be had from that. My travel in 20 years of doing this is the 20th year that I've been in business with the LLC, has been lots of learning. I probably can't fix a truck to save my life anymore unless it's an LB7. You all know the LB7 swapped the world. I don't understand the inline stuff. And if you have to change oil to get oil pressure to run the injectors, very narrow-minded, not gonna lie. Nate, you're the guy for that. A couple of you guys that do that in a row stuff, that's great. I prefer to have to dig for hours to find something to work on. Questions? Make something up. Nick, great.
Where do you find yourself bringing the business
So what I found is getting out of the way is the best thing that I can do. And I do. I took a weekend trip to the West Coast last summer.
How many weekends?
6. I took a weekend trip this spring after Vision for 7 weekends.
I think the answer to that Eric would say is you got to have the right people in place, and then you get out of the way and let them do what they do, right? Obviously, do what? Yeah, don't micromanage. Like,
Do you know I still do that? I beat you to it.
Don't do it, nobody likes it.
No. Nobody likes to do it as much as they will argue that.
I think the important part there is staff to your weakness. Again, I go in all your shops. No offense. Most of you should not be talking to the general public, right? I mean, am I right? Like, if I'm being real, like, you're not a salesperson. Get a salesperson. There's a guy in this room that hired a salesperson, followed me on for years upon years. He called me up and said, hey, come on run the shop. I want you to meet this guy. 5 minutes into the conversation, I walked off and I was like, I don't know if he's going to sell shit, but I'm not talking to him anymore. I've been talking my leg off. I'm hard. And he absolutely turned that business upside down with being able to sell parts, being able to sell service and all those things. So.
And that is very true. And I'm saying this not because I do it, because I know it's the right answer. It's let the people go. Let the people do it. They're there because you trust them. You give them a key, you give them a credit card, you allow them to represent the business. Let them do it, and put the right people in the right seat. There's good seats and bad seats. And what I remember just 2-3 weeks ago is I was filling in as an advisor. I was filling in for the advisor. He was gone. I think he was out sick or something like that. And I remember texting him about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm like, you can fire me tomorrow because here's what I did that I would not allow you to do. I revert back to my old ways because A, I'm not out of practice, but B, I can't charge that guy that. $400 for him to tell him it needs X, Y, Z? That was insane. Whereas the right person can do that and confidently do it. And I'm going to touch on it a little bit. Vinny touched on it a little bit, and I forgot to put a note in it, and I just thought about it again. People come to everybody in here because of the work they do, the quality they have, the job they provide. We've implemented a upfront testing charges. We don't just do an hour. We don't call it diagnosis anymore. We provide tests. You go to the doctor, they do tests. They don't charge you 2 hours to do 4 tests. We need to do blood work. That's a set charge. We need to do doctor stuff. I don't make something up. But they do tests, whether it be a compression test, whether it be maybe it's a smoke test with a smoke machine for a boost leak. Whatever that is, charge for it. Get that. If you drag your $10,000 scanner out and a $5,000 smoke machine on your $6,000 bay with $100,000 worth of tools and 30 years of knowledge, add it up. It's not free. But don't be afraid to put it up front. If we get an emissions light on, or a service exhaust, or a reductant fluid quality, any of those late model emission type things, it's $500 right up front. And if somebody's been in there before, or it's been to the dealer, or it's been to a shop, that went to $1,000. Before the truck even gets wrote up, it's $1,000. Well, at the time it gets wrote up. Get that commitment. You're not necessarily going to use it all, but don't be afraid to charge for it. Charge your time. How long does it take to do a fluid quality test? If it passes, an hour? And then you have to do a DPF burn, and then you need to drive it 25 miles, and then do the fluid quality test again. What are you getting paid for? An hour? It's not going to cut it, guys, especially with the emission stuff. just charge your worth. You're worth it.
That topic is a session in and of itself.
That is a whole nother thing, and that's why I didn't want to go too deep in it.
If you, like, I know that that topic specifically is gonna start a lot of questions and a lot of conversations. There are tons of people in this room who have just implemented a diagnostics charge when it comes in, or who've been doing it for years upon years and charging for the 30 minutes they've got to take it on a test drive before and 30 minutes after. And the 30 minutes his wife has to sit down and make up the estimate for him and all that stuff. Ask me who to talk to. I'll point you in the direction of people. Ask Eric. He'll be more than happy to sit down with you. I know Cecil and Bill will be happy to sit down and talk to you about that kind of stuff too. All those people are going to be around tomorrow for the vendor hall as well. Cecil, the Institute, and Bill, Cost Performance Consulting. They'll have all that stuff set up too. But all the speakers, and then Zeb, I point him out all the time. He's never shy. He'll tell you everything in the world that he does. Try to duplicate it is what he says. But Shepard's done it. I know there's a ton of people in this room who have instituted that. So that's a discussion in itself, though. Eric, thank you. Give it up for Eric again.
Welcome. Thank you. And also, Dennis, thanks for not trying to sell while we're in here. It's appreciated.
Well, I mean, you did get the cow hollering at you.
I did. I had no idea it was so scientific to inseminate a cow.
She saw a stud.
It was great. It was great.
You're also in for a treat. Dennis is here. Dennis Craig is the owner of Thoroughbred